I would say 500,000 Canadians who need medical marijuana don't have permits and are currently buying it on black markets or by the local compassion clubs.
Welcome back. I'm Dan Matheson. Medical marijuana users will not need to rely on the federal government for their pot anymore. A federal court recently gave patients more freedom in picking their own grower. And growers have now got the right to supply pot to more than one patient. Arguably, this is taking us one step closer to a free marketplace for pot. And it has people asking questions. Is it time to decriminalize, to legalize? Jeanette Hay is a former drug user, now with the Drug Prevention Network of Canada. Alan Young is a professor of law who, in fact, represented medical marijuana users in this case. So we're going to ask Alan to kind of explain what the case was about and what it means.
Sure. It's a bit complicated, but as of 1999, the Government of Canada had a medical marijuana program because of court orders largely. But the one thing they never really contemplated was how do people get marijuana legally once they have the right to use it. So we went back to court. And the court basically said you should allow people to be able to grow for patients. Someone who's experienced, who has the know-how, yes, they're in the black market, they should be able to do it. The Government of Canada decided within a couple of months they weren't going to go that route and push people towards their product and only allow a producer to produce for one patient.
So the Government of Canada grows pot?
Yeah, in a mine shaft. And they like the optics of it, that it's far away and it's very dangerous.
Yes.
They don't want people growing for 50 patients because then it kind of diffuses the image of a grow room as being dangerous. But ultimately, this judge in the federal court decided that the government acted arbitrarily, that they didn't have a reason to create a monopoly over distribution, that if an experienced grower wants to grow for a series of patients, they should be able to, because quite frankly, at this stage with medical marijuana, we don't know enough about the product to know what works. So it's a bit of trial and error, and the government only has one strain. It doesn't work for everybody. So this is a good day for people who use marijuana medicinally because they'll be able to find a source that may be able to help them.
How many people is that?
Well, in the program, the government program, it's 2,000. The CMA, not my numbers, estimates 400,000 Canadians use marijuana for medicinal purposes. That's a huge number. So eventually we're going to have to address this issue because it can't continue in this sort of subterranean way.
And the CMA believes that all 400,000 require this drug for medicinal purposes.
The number shocked me a little bit. I thought it was a bit high.
Shocked a little bit.
But I don't know the methodology. But I can tell you from doing this work for almost 8 years, the numbers are somewhat shocking. Marijuana as a medicine has so many diverse applications, and that's why the numbers are so high, from combating nausea to controlling neuropathic pain. So you're dealing with a very large patient group.
Jeanette, what do you make of this?
Well, it's a financial issue, and it's a drug issue at the same time. One is it's a $500 million industry in the potential industry. And here in Canada, some companies want to have projections of making $50 million, which is a lot of money when you consider it's on the backs of the people who are sick. They're basically making the money off of the people who are in pain. And I feel for the people who are in pain. However, there are other drugs that can be used, and there are drugs such as in England, where they've managed to make a drug out of marijuana that is non-addictive, and it has only non-hallucinogenic and non...
Does this drug have a name? Do you recall the name?
It's... cannot know, but
there's Sesamet, there's Marinol, there is synthetic
Marinol is
THC.
one of it, but that's not the one that's in England, though.
But the point really is, why shouldn't patients have a choice? Generally, in medical care, patients are the ones that make the decision with their doctor's supervision.
Yes, but it should be regulated. It should be tested properly, and it hasn't been yet. Well, I mean, let's face it, the scientific studies have not been done yet.
Well, we know it has medical value. We don't know exactly how, but I can tell you we know it because pharmaceutical industries right now are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to tap into marijuana. Once we know big business accepts it, then we know there's some evidence out there. And in terms of the harms, we know a lot about it. It's got a great margin of safety, so we know a lot more than you think.
I don't know about margin of safety. I mean, we're dealing with a drug that, I mean, when you're talking about giving a medicinal agent to someone who is in pain already, you're asking to give a drug that is addictive, that lowers their immune system, that harms their lungs, that is no longer considered a soft drug, but in fact a highly toxic drug. So why would we do that to them?
Yeah, well, I would take issue with almost everything you said there.
Okay.
In terms of lung damage, there is bronchial impairment, but there's good studies that it's not a cancer-causing agent.
Proven yet.
Dr. Tashkin in UCLA proved it with a longitudinal study with thousands of people. He actually found the incidence of lung cancer less in the marijuana smokers than the general population. So I'm not sure.
But there are other studies that prove that it is cancer-causing.
You know what? There are a lot of studies, and those are old studies, and they've been discredited. The bottom line is science is used as a tool of propaganda when it comes to marijuana, and unfortunately, we have to deal with a lot of mythology and mistakes in terms of the scientific research. I'm not saying it's perfectly harmless. There's nothing perfectly harmless in this world. But as a medicine goes, the side effects from marijuana and the long-term effects are so much less serious than most of the pharmaceuticals you buy.
I take issue with that because you're dealing with someone who's got an immune system that's stressed to begin with. And now you're going to put more stress on that system.
I got to tell you something. I represent a lot of AIDS patients, and when I started this, I had to check that out because I didn't want to give them a time bomb. And I dealt with a lot of doctors and read a lot of studies, and there is not the immune impairment. It came out of a study in 1974 of a scientist who's been basically kicked out of Columbia University because his methodology was that bad. So I feel quite comfortable about the immune impairment.
Well, one of the problems with drugs, though, of all kinds, whether you take an pill or you take an IV or you smoke it, is there's an upside downside to almost every
cost-benefit.
Every drug you take.
You can give them the pill. One of the pills that comes out of England doesn't have any hallucinogenic properties or euphoric properties.
So what did you do if a patient says that doesn't work for me and I want to use the marijuana? Are you saying no? Because that's what my clients say.
I know. I mean, I feel for those people who have to really search out what drug they need to use to stop their pain. But the thing is that you're giving them something that is going to harm them as well and addict them. And we know that the THC is very high and that it, out of the 460 chemicals that you're smoking, I mean, if smoking cigarettes is bad for you, and we all know that it is, why would we legalize smoking marijuana that has the same amount of toxins?
We are talking apples and oranges.
On this issue, let's let Jeanette have the last word, because I want to close by asking you, are we indeed getting one step closer to legalizing the use of marijuana?
Not with this current government and not in the current political climate. There will be a shift. You see it ebbs and flows all the time. Within 5 years, we'll be having the same debate. But right now, it's dead in the water as Harper wants to really be very American in his drug policy. But it will return.
Okay, well, we'll give you the last word on that. Jeanette, thank you. Alan, nice to see you again.